Welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. We're only a little more than halfway through the year, and the floodgate of new Souls-likes has yet to let up. We got Kaizen, the first Berserker, Elden Ring Night Rain, AI Limit, Mandragora, Eliza P DLC, Rise of the Ronin on PC, kind of. Stellar Blade on PC also, kind of. No Rest for the Wicked, major updates. It's been non-stop with these games. And now comes Wuchang Fallen Feathers, yet another Souls-like to add to an already overcrowded market. And I wouldn't blame anyone for being a little burnt out with the genre. But even now, with how exhausting these games can be, Wuchang actually deserves some attention because it's pretty great. It's developed by Lenzee, Lenzee, I guess. They're known for making Wuchang Fallen Feathers. That's it. That's the only thing they're known for. It's published by 505 Games. It's a graphically ambitious Souls-like out of China from an unproven developer that could have been a disaster, but just like Wukong, a game with a name that sounds almost the same, just accidentally bringing Wu-Tang into the equation here with some rap. I've made that joke already. Don't worry. We've gone there already in another video. But this game's an actual success. Out of all the similarly sounding games that start with a W, I'd put this one near the top. I mean, the Wu-Tang game won't be out for a while, but at least for right now, I mean, depending on what you're looking for, it may actually be the best. I know, both take cotton, but listen, there's a certain itch this one scratches perfectly. So, in Wuchang, you play as the titular Wuchang, set in the ancient kingdom of Shu. The plot is classic Souls-like. It's conveyed almost entirely by talking to NPCs and through environmental clues. There's a plague called the Feathering, which is not a cool-sounding plague, but not something I would want to happen to me. Think the Beast Plague, but instead of werewolves is bird people. Again, not something I would like. That's the game in a nutshell. It's part Bloodborne with the grotesque monster design, part Wukong with its exacting recreations of certain Chinese cultural sites, and part Stellar Blade, because Wuchang herself, let's say there's some outfits that certain people will be discussing on the internet and alone with themselves. Off the rails, sorry. It all probably sounds pretty derivative, and in some ways it is, but nothing isn't, really. I mean, this is a classic Souls-like in every sense of the word. Doesn't stray too far from the formula, at least with the basic gameplay, but the game does manage to do some interesting things with the formula, and ultimately, it's just a really fun experience that's maybe a little less intense than some of its contemporaries. It's certainly still a challenging game, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely on the lower end of the Souls spectrum in terms of difficulty, which is kind of refreshing. Now, at this point, I do not think I need to explain how a Souls-like works. For the most part, this one sticks to the formula pretty close, but the parts where it does something different, I will say, are what makes it interesting. All the expected elements are here. In terms of controls, it's one-to-one, but one major difference here is a mechanic central to combat called Skyborn Might. How it works is, instead of having a power meter or a mana bar, you get charges when you perform perfect dodges, or perform so many attacks in a combo, or there's a few other ways that you can get unlocked later, which can be spent to cast magic to perform discipline skills that you unlock for different weapons or specific weapon abilities. Because you get charges for dodging, which, by the way, extremely generous in terms of invincibility frames. Pretty much the entire dodge is untouchable, rather than the first part of it like in most of these types of games. So you're building up a charge pretty much all the time, meaning you can unleash your special abilities and weapon skills pretty constantly. It's a really empowering system that lets you go nuts with magic and powers as long as you're able to keep the momentum up. So the game essentially encourages aggression above all else, especially when you start unlocking clash enhancements for some of your attacks, which make it so certain moves all but ignore or absorb most of the damage from enemy hits. Most of the time, it's dodging. There is a parry system, but it's tied to certain weapons, and it's entirely optional, which is, I'm also just going to say, pretty refreshing after the amount of parry-heavy action games we've had over the last couple years. At times, this game really feels like a flashier, more powers-based Bloodborne, and that is not a bad thing at all. Another significant alteration from the usual Souls formula is that the game has a skill tree. How you level up, essentially the same. You get currency from killing enemies. It can be spent to level up, but the skill tree really simplifies the process. Each branch focuses on a different aspect of gameplay, including weapons. There's a pretty decent selection of killing implements here. You got your standard long swords, spears, axes, double blades, one-handed swords that are interesting, actually closer to magic catalysts than your usual agility-based weapons. And the sword branch is also the magic branch. While unlocking upgrades and skills for weapons, you can also put points towards strength or vitality or whatever, and each branch gives you upgrades that enhance each specific weapon type, which makes upgrading your character less of a guessing game. As long as you spread out points down a certain weapon path, you're probably going to be okay in Wuchang. One actual innovation is that the weapon upgrades are done through a skill tree as well. Instead of upgrading certain weapons, like in pretty much all these games, you instead upgrade an entire weapon class, so you can freely swap to new weapons that pop up, and all upgrades are automatically applied to them, which is a great idea. I would definitely like to see that implemented in other games like this. You're not stuck using a specific weapon anymore, which is real nice. It's a simple thing, but I like it. It makes finding new weapons feel rewarding instead of like a chore. Oh, I love this new weapon. Now I have to do all the same shit for it that I've already done for my other weapon that I don't want anymore. It's not like that. There are a lot of other systems to mess around with. Maybe too many to be honest, but it's not that complicated of a game if you're familiar with the genre. The death mechanics are slightly different here. They might sound really punishing at first, but honestly, it's really not that bad. There's this whole convoluted mechanic called madness, where if you kill humans or die in battle, your madness builds up until it maxes out, and then Wuchang's eyes go red and she does more damage, but she also takes more damage while in this state. You can remove the effect by using special rare items or killing bosses, but if you die while at full madness, then a demon gets left at the spot that you died. If it kills you, you lose all the currency that dropped on the ground. Madness has other effects too, like if you're a UK rock band, it can get you to peak at number 45 on the US 100 Billboard charts. But here, madness will do different things. If it's high or low, it affects certain skills. How high it is affects how many souls you drop when you die. It's a whole thing. Sounds scary, but it's ultimately just your standard corpse run mechanic with an added red invader once in a while. So mechanical stuff out of the way, let's talk about what makes this game actually good. First, environmental design. Very strong. It's a beautiful game with dense, really detailed areas. The first zone is especially impressive. And what really surprises me is that this game, it looks incredible at times, plus still having a reasonable file size. It's less than 50 gigabytes on a full install. Visually, not quite up there with Wuchang, but it's close. Along with the environmental design, I really appreciate the level design in general. It's not just visually good, it's also mechanically good. Each area is sprawling with tons of little side paths and alternate routes to explore. When there's a village, it's not just a single corridor. You can go into the houses, climb on the roof, explore the back alleys, go pretty much anywhere you can see. For me, a big part of the Souls experience is exploration, and this game has got excellent level design for that. It starts off pretty linear, but once you're through the first major area, it suddenly opens up quite a bit. Maybe a little bit too much for some people. It really becomes a sprawl of interconnected areas that could be confusing for some because there's no map. In this part of the game, it's easy to wander into areas that are far too difficult for you, but the main path is pretty obvious. It's just tempting to go off the beaten path because it's a video game. That's kinda what everybody does in those. In terms of bosses, they're varied and they're often pretty spectacular. In pure volume, there's not nearly as many as in Wuchang, but I also have to say I prefer this game's more spaced out boss encounters. This may be a key way that this is more like a traditional Souls than Wolong. The bosses stand out more when they're not absolutely everywhere, and I appreciate that many of these can be taken on whenever you want and don't often gate progress. The game has plenty of traditional guide with sword style bosses, but the Bloodborne influence brings some really impressive freaks to the fight as well. And while some of these boss fights are not so bad, some are going to stomp you into dust if you go in unprepared. In general, I'd say this game is the inverse of a lot of recent Souls games where I'd say the levels are actually the harder part, not not so much the bosses. Certain locations are really grueling tests of endurance where save points are limited, but enemies are many. There's a lot of mini-boss style special encounters dotted around that can be just as dangerous as certain full boss encounters. There's tons to explore too, but exploration is rewarded well in this game. First with new weapons that actually have their own unique properties and special moves. Then there's also upgrade materials and a whole lot of costumes. When I first booted up the game and I saw a shop option, I was a little worried about the game being stingy with the armor, but this is not the case. They absolutely shower you with different costume parts. So, I mean, it's almost hard to keep up. That's how much is going on there. And in a kind of refreshing change for a game like this, not all the armor sets you're getting are revealing. There's a lot of standard enemy armors you get as well, and some pretty sick-looking boss armors. I mentioned enemy design, but I do have to give it to this game. They came up with some really impressively disgusting and bizarre enemies. There are some things where I just didn't know what to expect when I walked up to them, and that's what you want to see in a Souls game. They managed to put that sort of fear of the unknown into you. And trust me, like, I've seen, I don't want to say it all, because I obviously haven't, but it feels like I've seen it all. But here, along with enemies, the level design, it's not just good because it's big and fun to explore, it's all varied. There's stuff that, like, you just don't expect. There's unique enemies and hazards to mix things up. Some places have undead that spawn endlessly, unless you disable certain monoliths. There's a giant cave pit full of failed experiments, rebel camps full of traps and cannons and archers and towers. There's a dense moonlit forest full of bizarre parasites lying in wait. It's not just that there's different areas, each one feels different, and they have an impressive variety of enemies, and that, man, does that help. It's just a solid game overall that looks and feels great. It's good to play. It's pretty damn long with lots of side quests and optional locations to explore. There's not a lot of full-blown secrets, at least that I've seen. And the interconnectivity is not like as impressive as the first Dark Souls or anything. But after so many aggressively linear Souls-likes that have been coming out lately, the kind of nod to the more non-linear approach of the original is refreshing. The game also runs great on my PC at maxed out settings. Almost no glitches, no noticeable bugs to speak of. I did get a little hitching when moving between environments, but otherwise it's really stable. All in all, Wuchang is a solid game, pretty great Souls-like that doesn't do a lot to upend expectations, but gets by on just being really well made and fun to play. It's not like it's just a carbon copy of every other Souls that you've played in the past. It brings a couple of minor new things to the table, certainly appreciated things, but it's the density and complexity of the stages and the design. That's what I want in these games. And I'll say, maybe sometimes the complexity might be a little bit much for some people, but it's what I'm here for, man. I like this sometimes. Annoying traps and endlessly branching paths. If you prefer the games to be a little more linear and straightforward, you might get a little frustrated with this one past the first area. Combat might take a little getting used to as well. You need to unlock those clash upgrades and the Skyborn Might stuff to get the most out of it. But once it clicks, you're going to feel like an unstoppable killing machine in the best way. For folks burnt out on Souls-likes, I still think this game deserves a look simply because it's such a well-made game. Like, you get burnt out on these things not necessarily because they're impossible to make something that's fun and fresh to play. It's more because you get used to a certain level of a bare minimum quality that kind of starts to feel like that's the mediocre one. Even if in a lot of cases they're pretty good, you need some standouts. And this is, in terms of quality, a standout. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to innovate and take you into a new age, but man, oh man, is it a good game. There's not a lot of story to bog things down, and in these games, story is often a liability. There's tons of opportunities to play dress up. There's amazing vistas to stop and stare at. It's everything you could want in one of these games, while also being a little more forgiving with the difficulty, and again, possible to play around other people. And although some of you are going to play with yourselves, I don't think that's explicitly the reason you're going to be playing this game. I just realized how I said that. It's basically everything you could want with one of these games, of being just a bit more forgiving with the difficulty. The general lack of innovation probably holds it back from being one of the best of the best, but a sort of Bloodborne-like with a Wuxia setting, it gives it a unique vibe. It's engrossing, it's fun, and anybody who likes this genre should check it out, as long as you don't mind getting lost once in a while, because you will get lost once in a while. That's what I've got for you. What do you have for me? That's all. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.